Hello, Econ students. Today we're doing notes 3.1 on demand. Your essential question: what is the law of demand and how does that affect business decisions? So, today we're going to be learning about what the law of demand is, what's a demand schedule, what's a demand curve. So, the law of demand states that consumers will buy more of a good when the price decreases and less when the price increases. So you can think of the law of demand like Black Friday. We have Thanksgiving coming up pretty soon. We're heading into the holiday season. When prices go down the day after Thanksgiving, when there's big sales, increases of demand will go up. So consumers want to buy a lot more when the prices are cheaper. These are two separate behavior patterns that are overlapping: the substitution effect and the income effect. These two effects describe the different ways that consumers can change their spending patterns for other goods. So, the substitution effect occurs when a consumer reacts to an increase in price by consuming either less of that good or more of other goods. So, we can think of this like in terms of eating. Okay, so steaks are usually pretty expensive. If a price of a steak goes up, then consumers will buy more of a less quality meat, such as like a hot dog, and they will eat that instead. So they will substitute out one item for another. The income effect happens when a person changes his or her consumption of goods based on a change in their real income. So that means if you get a job, you're starting to make more money, or if you get a raise, that has an impact on your spending habits. So you might be buying more of these steaks over here on the left side, more of the more expensive items if you have an increase in your income. Producers of goods create a demand schedule. This is a table that lists the quantity of a good a person will buy at each different price. They create this schedule to try to determine how many products they want to create and what their profit margin will be. A market demand schedule is a table that lists the quantity of all goods that consumers will buy in a market at each different price. So if we were looking at a demand schedule, if we have some clubs on campus that sell pizza after school, the BSU usually sells pizza like once a week after school in the bus circle. So they have to determine how much they're going to sell their pizza for and what their profit margins will be. So they can figure that out by using a demand schedule. So if we have an individual demand schedule, they can decide that they're going to sell a slice of pizza for 50 cents, then their quantity demanded is going to be higher because if it's cheaper, people are going to want to buy more. But if they start going up to $2 a slice, there's going to be less people that actually want to buy that pizza. Plotting those numbers on a curve would be the market demand curve. So, this is the graphical representation of the demand schedule. It's the exact same information, it's just displayed on a graph for people who like to visualize it in this way. When reading a demand curve, assume that all outside factors are held constant. So we can't say something like, oh, well, what if the cafeteria catches on fire and we don't have any lunch for the day? Then the demand for the pizza is going to go up. Well, we're not considering any of those things. We're assuming that all outside factors are held constant. So shifts in this demand curve. Ceteris paribus is the Latin phrase that economists will use when they're talking about shifts in demand, and it means that all other things are held constant. So, like we said, everything else going on in the economy, we're holding all of that constant. That way, we're trying to determine the market schedule for the demand curve. The demand curve is only accurate as long as the ceteris paribus assumption is true. But when you drop that, the entire demand curve can shift. What causes a shift in demand? Several factors can lead to a change in demand. First of all, income, of course, can change to a lead in demand. When people have increased incomes, they start buying more of those more expensive goods. But if they have a decrease in their income, they will start buying more of inferior goods, things like non name brand items. Consumer expectations can lead to a shift in demand as well. So whether they believe that the item will increase in price in the future or decrease in price in the future. So if we're taking Black Friday as an example, we can have big ticket electronic items like televisions or PlayStations. Those will decrease in price on Black Friday, but people assume that they will increase in price later on, which is why they want to buy them at that time. A change in the size of the population can affect demand. If we have a lot of people moving out of an area, we could have a shift in demand, or a lot of people moving into an area. Consumer taste and advertising. Of course, advertising has a huge impact on demand. Apple is really good at advertising. They're able to get people to buy their products more. And the price of related goods. So, if there's related goods that are very similar and they're cheaper, that could lower the demand for that product that's being sold. The price of related goods has an impact on the demand curve as well. So, complements are items that are bought together. So, these would be examples like things like skis and ski boots, or video games and a video game console. Those things are generally bought together. They're considered a complementary good. Substitute items are goods that are used in place of one another. So, substitute items are like coffee or tea, or if you were buying cereal, buying name brand, or buying um, like the Safeway or the Rayleigh's version of that same cereal. So, substitute items are goods that are used in place of one another. Elasticity of demand is a measure of how consumers react to a change in price. Demand for a good that consumers will continue to buy despite a price increase is considered to be inelastic. Okay, so it doesn't change much, it doesn't shift much, it's not very stretchy, not very elastic. Okay, so demand will continue to be the same no matter an increase in price. So you got to think about the things that your family buys every single week. So maybe when you go to the grocery store, you're buying milk, you're buying bread every week. You always buy those items. Even if the price goes up a little bit, you will always buy those items because they're staples in your family's diet. Demand for a good that is very sensitive to a change in prices is considered to be elastic. Okay, so that means as much as it changes, the demand changes as well. Okay, so if there's an increase in prices over something like an iPhone that you are going to buy, then perhaps that would be considered elastic because it's very sensitive to a change in price. We can calculate elasticity as well. I'm not going to have you do this in class, but there is a formula to calculate elasticity. And then, of course, we can plot elasticity on the demand curve as well. Okay, so this cartoon here kind of shows you elastic demand. So if the cola is only $1, they're going to buy more, but if it's $3, not going to buy it at all. Okay, it's the elasticity of demand. And we can also plot inelastic demand as well on our graph. Okay, so this comic here shows you inelastic demand. So here, milk, 80 cents, they're buying it. But even when the price goes up to 240, still buying it because they still need it. Factors that affect the elasticity of a good: the availability of substitutes. If there are substitutes for a good, that will affect the elasticity. But if there's very few substitutes for a good, then demand will not likely decrease if the price increases. Percentage of your income that's spent on a good. Another factor that determines the elasticity of demand is how much of your budget you're actually spending on the good, whether you consider it a luxury or a necessity. So you're generally going to spend that money no matter what if you consider it a necessity, but if it's a luxury, it may not be something that you buy. And then changes over time. Sometimes people start buying other products, no longer need it. That can affect the elasticity. Elasticity of demand determines how a change in price will affect a firm's total revenue or income. So, a company's total revenue is the amount of money the company receives from selling its goods or services. If a good has an elastic demand, raising prices may actually decrease the firm's total revenue. And here, this cartoon shows you a little example. Calvin and Hobbes. I'll give you a couple minutes to read that. And then don't forget to write a summary at the end of your notes. A couple sentences is all you need.